Hey everyone, today we're going over the movie Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle. And right now it's getting a lot of mixed reviews online. Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 54% by the critic rating and 75% by audience rating. Metacritic has it at a 61%, and Letterboxd has it at a 3.9 out of 5. So there's obviously some type of miscommunication happening here. So let's get into what the plot is, and then I'll go over some of the highs and the lows of my thoughts of the movie. And yes, this will be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it yet, come back. Don't forget about me. But if you have seen it, stick around, watch it, or if you just don't care, watch my review now. Babylon is an epic period piece set in the late 1920s, spanning across from the old black and white movies into the introduction of talkies, or movies as we know them today, where there's audio synced up with people talking. The movie stars Diego Calva, who is hired on as an assistant to help transport an elephant to a big Hollywood party at a house at the top of a mountain where all the big names go. One of the big names is played by Brad Pitt. His name is Jack Conrad. He's the biggest star in Hollywood right now. If his name is on the ticket, it's going to be a smash hit for them. Diego Calva's character is named Manny. And Manny wants to work in the film industry. He doesn't know what he wants to do. He just knows that he wants to do something in that industry, probably behind the camera. And he ends up running into Margot Robbie. Margot Robbie's character is not a big actress at the time. She's a nobody. And she actually sneaks into the party with the help of Manny. Margot Robbie's character is Nellie Leroy, and at the very beginning of the movie, she says she is a star and everyone will know her name. So they go into the party, they get really high, they end up running off and doing things on their own. Nellie's dancing, and Manny ends up helping Jack Conrad get back to his house right before a full day of production for this new movie. Jack ends up taking really well to Manny and wants him to be his personal assistant. So Manny ends up riding on the coattails of the biggest name in all of Hollywood and just running around doing different projects for him and helping him out on set whenever he needs it. Meanwhile, Nellie ends up getting spotted while she's dancing at the party by a big producer at the time and says, "Hey, the girl that we were going to have on set is blacked out. She might be dead. Let's get that girl that's dancing, Nellie, to come over to set tomorrow and she'll play the character that the other girl was supposed to play." And when she gets to set that morning, she ends up doing a great job. She's crying on command, she's dancing, she's doing everything that the director is asking of her and more. Even when there's a fire going on in the background, she's still performing and doesn't even care about what's happening. Then there's another character that's also at the party that I haven't mentioned yet. The character's name is Sidney Palmer, and he's played by Jovan Adepo. This guy is a sensational jazz trumpet player, and he's performing at the party with a big band, but gets spotted about half an hour later at another event where they keep performing at these big Hollywood parties. And eventually, when the talkies come out, when sound pictures start moving, Manny says, "Hey, we should get these jazz performers on screen and have like a concert in a movie form." And it's a smash hit and everyone loves it, and then Sidney Palmer ends up becoming really popular because of this. While all this is happening, years start to pass, and Manny's climbing the Hollywood ladder. Nellie is becoming the biggest star right under Jack Conrad, and Sidney is playing for these different Hollywood performances until he ends up getting picked up by different studios to perform and play music in a movie. Now, I'm truncating this a lot because it's a 3 hour and 9 minute film, which is a very long movie. But the overall theme of this movie is this pattern of rise and fall. And what I mean by that is every one of these characters, Jack, Sidney, Manny, Nellie, all of them have this rise where they get to the top, and then about halfway to 2/3 of the way through the movie, you start to see their descent into wherever they might end up. And this is where a big spoiler comes in. A lot of them die. Hey there, while I have you, are you looking for the best in movie news, movie reviews, trailer reactions, and just general thoughts? Look no further. Hit the subscribe button now so you don't miss out on anything new. Now, let's get back to the video. And the people who don't end up leaving the town and leaving the industry altogether because of how toxic this industry has become for them. And I think that's an overall theme of the movie, which is talking about how when you're in Hollywood and you're becoming this big star, you can feel like you're at the top of the world and you get all these benefits and everyone knows your name. But then as soon as you stop providing value to them and stop becoming entertaining, they'll spit you out like you're nothing. There's actually a journalist that essentially said just that to Jack Conrad. Eleanor St. John is played by Jean Smart. She's around throughout the entire movie, but her last scene is when she's talking to Brad Pitt's character and essentially says exactly what I said, which is, "You're used up. You had your fun, but now it's time for you to go." And that's essentially what Damien Chazelle was getting at, or from what I could gather. In the trailer, you end up seeing Tobey Maguire, who's playing this kingpin drug lord. That's a whole small villain arc in Manny's storyline, and I think it's just there to show how toxic the industry is, but it's nothing more than just for laughs, I'd say, and hitting you over the head with that theme again. So with my rough plot out of the way, let's go into what I like and what I didn't like so much, and then I'll tell you what my rating was at the end. So what did I like? I liked the performances. I thought everyone did an amazing job. All the characters, from the extras all the way up to the main stars, they all performed at their highest level, and Damien Chazelle got the most out of them. I'm really impressed with how that went down. I also really liked the cinematography. I thought that it was really well lit. I loved the camera angles, the shots. I liked how there were some scenes where the camera is telling you what's going to happen or giving you pieces of information right before the characters find out. The first hour and a half is really where the movie shines. This is where you get to see how Hollywood was producing movies back when they were silent films. And you also got to see what that transition was like when sound pictures started filming. There's a really good scene when Margot Robbie is acting in this new sound picture, and she keeps walking through the door and missing her mark because the microphone has to be in a very specific spot, and whenever she is hitting it, she's saying it too loudly or too quietly, and every time they have to do a new take, and the camera has to be in a separate room altogether that they made because the film is too loud while it's rolling, and the air conditioner can't be on, so everyone's sweating and getting really angry. It's a hilarious scene, and it really shows how a film set would be if not for really good microphones nowadays. The party scenes are also really cool. You get to see the characters all interacting with each other and seeing what they're going to be getting up to next. I do like the rise and fall story to a point, but this is where my positives end and my negatives start to come out a bit, which is that rise and fall is really good, but it's so long. It's over 3 hours long, and it feels very slowly paced in the second half, and almost as if they didn't know where the story should go and how the characters would end up leaving or dying or moving or whatever they end up doing. I think there's a few too many party scenes. It felt very repetitive after a while, and I was like, well, I get it. They're trying to show the highs and lows of Hollywood and how people are with all this money and all this fame. But I don't think it had to be 3 hours long, and I don't think they had to have that many scenes involved. And then I think just the biggest negative for me would be at the very end, there was this almost like 10-minute scene of Manny 20 years later coming back with his family. He brought his wife and his child and said, hey, this is where I used to work. And the kid's like, well, I'm bored, because they're like 7. And then the wife and his kid go back to the hotel, and Manny goes and watches a movie, and it's The Jazz Singer, which reminded him of his time when he was working in the film industry, and reminded him of Margot Robbie, reminded him of Brad Pitt, and so on. It went on for such a long time, and then Damien Chazelle does this thing where it almost felt like a YouTube fan edit of a bunch of different movies. They had movies like Terminator, like Avatar, like Metropolis, and it was showing the beginning of film, the inception of film, all the way to what we're at today. It was showing technological advancements, like when Terminator, when you saw the CGI of the person and it looked halfway decent in the 80s, and it shows Avatar with the mocap and how that ended up redefining cinema again. But it felt like too much. It almost felt like Damien Chazelle didn't trust that the audience understood what his point of this movie was over those 3 hours. So then he spent an extra 10 minutes hitting you over the head with it, with that entire sequence. And it felt very much like he was spoon feeding the audience what the point of the movie was. And I'm not the biggest fan of when movies do that. And it did sour that ending a bit for me. Overall, I really, really liked the movie. I think it was a great time. I think everyone should go watch it in theaters because, well, I'll let Harry Styles say it.
My favorite thing about the movie is like it feels like a movie. It feels like a real go to the theater film movie that you kind of the reason why you go to watch something on the big screen. I think
Thanks, Harry. So with that out of the way, let's go into my rating. And as you know, I like to go on Letterboxd for these ratings. I think they're a little bit more consistent. Also, I just rate and watch everything and mark it on Letterboxd. So out of 5 stars, I gave it a 4. Initially, I had it at 3.5, but especially after recording this video, I think it's definitely worth 4 out of 5. I wouldn't say 5 out of 5. I think the biggest takeaways are, again, the length and then that ending. If you stuck the second half of the movie, and especially that ending, then I think it would be 4.5 to 5. But right now, 4 out of 5, and I think that's a pretty fair rating because, like I said, the average is at a 3.9, which is right about 4. So, did you guys watch the movie? If you did, let me know what you think, and if you didn't, thanks for sticking around and getting spoiled. Thanks again. Bye.